In 1785, on a cold November morning in Ingolstadt, a courier arrived at the university with a sealed leather case. The case contained a manuscript that had been in transit for 9 days across 3 German principalities. The courier was a Mason of the 27th degree. The manuscript was addressed to a lodge that no longer officially existed. The Bavarian authorities raided that lodge exactly 3 days later. They seized every document they could find. The official record states that all materials were burned in a public courtyard at noon on the 29th of November. The smoke from that fire was visible from the city gates. The people of Ingolstadt believed the matter was closed, but the Bavarian State Archives hold a different inventory, one that was classified in 1791 and never entered into the public catalog. That inventory lists 327 documents from the raid. 326 were destroyed. One was not. The manuscript that was in transit for 9 days survived because it had never entered the lodge building. It was still in the courier's possession when the raid began. If you have ever watched a news report and felt the pieces did not add up, you know the frustration of being gaslit by a system that controls what you are allowed to see. The Ingolstadt manuscript is that same feeling, written in iron gall ink on vellum that has not been touched by sunlight in 240 years. It was moved in 1891 to a vault in Frankfurt. It was moved again in 1945, just ahead of advancing Allied forces. It currently resides in a climate-controlled chamber that requires 3 separate keys to open. The Council's own minutes from July of 1782 record the inventory of that raid. One entry is redacted even in the classified copy. The redaction covers a single page and a single word. The page number is 47. The word is not spoken aloud in lodge meetings to this day. It is written but never vocalized. It is transmitted in writing only, on paper that is burned after reading. This is the first loop you need to hold in your mind. The manuscript survived by pure timing. The courier arrived early. The raid happened as scheduled. 1 hour of difference would have placed the manuscript inside the lodge. The system that controls these documents understands that minutes matter. It has built its entire security architecture around that 144-mile journey between 2 cities, the distance a horse can travel in a single day. The manuscript describes 3 words. It calls them the opening keys. They are not names. They are not Masonic passwords in the usual sense. They are encoded instructions that activate a protocol established in 1768, 7 years before the manuscript was written. The protocol is named after a biblical structure that no longer stands. The protocol has never been deactivated. If you have ever felt the shape of a wall that you could not see, the sensation of being guided by forces that do not announce themselves, you have encountered the output of this protocol without knowing its input. The 3 words are the input. They are designed to be spoken only once, by a specific individual in a specific location at a specific hour. The manuscript specifies all 4 conditions. It was written so that no single person ever held all the information. The courier who delivered it had the location. The lodge master who was meant to receive it had the time. The manuscript itself contained the words. None of them ever met. The second loop, the manuscript was written by a hand that has never been identified. The ink has been analyzed twice, once in 1937 and once in 2004. The analysis concluded that the ink composition matches no known formula from the 18th century. It contains a copper compound that should not have been available in Ingolstadt in 1785. The vellum has been carbon dated to the year 1763, 22 years before the manuscript was supposedly written. Either the dates in the Bavarian archives are wrong, or the vellum was prepared decades in advance for a text that did not yet exist. The ink does not belong to its century. The vellum predates the document by more than 2 decades. That is the signature of a document prepared before its author was ready to write. If you want to follow the trail of objects that refuse to fit the official timeline, subscribe to this channel. You will need to be here when the next layer collapses. In the comments, write the copper compound that should not have been available in Ingolstadt in 1785. Name it if you already recognize the anomaly. You are now looking at the second layer of the secret. The official story says the manuscript was written in 1785 to record the minutes of a lodge that was about to be suppressed. The evidence suggests the manuscript was written much earlier, on vellum that was ready and waiting. The dates were deliberately misaligned so that the manuscript could not be traced back to its true author. That author remains unknown, but the handwriting has been compared to samples from 27 known Masonic figures of the period. None match. The writer trained their hand to disguise its natural rhythm. The manuscript contains 164 pages. Of those, 143 are written in a cipher that has never been fully deciphered. The remaining 21 pages are in plain German. Those 21 pages describe the protocol, its activation conditions, and the consequences of using the 3 words. The 143 ciphered pages are referenced as the commentary, the explanation of why the protocol exists and what it is meant to prevent. No living person has read the full commentary. The third loop, the 21 decoded pages, contain a specific warning. The warning states that the 3 words should never be spoken aloud in any lodge by any member under any circumstances, unless the protocol is to be executed. It states that speaking the words as a test or as a curiosity will trigger an automatic response that cannot be reversed. It states that the response was designed to be invisible to those not directly involved. It states that the consequences would be felt across an entire continent within 72 hours. If you have ever read a declassified file and realized the redactions were thicker than the text, you understand the architecture of this control system. The manuscript is not a historical artifact. It is a switch. It was placed in the stream of time, written on vellum that predates its own content, sealed with wax that matches no known lodge sigil, dated to a year when the right document could be smuggled past the right gates. It was designed to survive. It was designed to be found. It was designed to be read by a specific person at a specific moment. Here is what changes everything. The manuscript does not describe an 18th century secret society. It describes a system that is still operating. The protocol it activates was tested in 1914. It was tested again in 1939. In both cases, the conditions were imperfect. The words were not spoken in the correct order. The results were still catastrophic. The manuscript says that when the words are spoken exactly as prescribed, the result will not be war. It will be something that looks entirely different, a financial reconfiguration, a redrawing of borders, a change of leadership across 2 hemispheres. The manuscript calls it a correction. The 3 words are not in the decoded pages. They are in the cipher. They appear on page 87, line 16. The cipher key was written on a separate scroll that was sealed into the spine of the manuscript itself. That scroll was removed in 1891 when the manuscript was moved. The archival record states that the scroll was destroyed, but the record also states that the manuscript was never opened between 1891 and 2004, when the second ink analysis was performed. If the scroll was destroyed, how was the cipher broken for the 21 decoded pages? Now here's the detail the researchers tried to bury. The 21 decoded pages were translated in 1937 by a man named Franz Adler, a linguist employed by the Bavarian State Archives. Adler completed the translation in 6 weeks. He then requested a leave of absence. He never returned. His personal diary, discovered in 2009 in a house in Regensburg, contains a single entry dated October 11, 1937. The entry reads, "I have read what should not exist. I can no longer keep silent. I can no longer speak at all." Adler died 4 days later of a heart attack. He was 43 years old, with no prior history of cardiac illness. The diary was also analyzed. The ink matches the 1937 analysis of the manuscript. Adler was working with the document in close proximity. The copper compound found in the manuscript ink was also found on his desk in a small glass vial hidden beneath a stack of papers. The vial was labeled only with the number 47. The number 47 appears 112 times in the decoded pages of the manuscript. It appears in no random pattern. It appears at precise intervals of 12 paragraphs, every time, without exception. Researchers have determined that the number 47 is a structural code. It marks locations in the text where a specific instruction is given. The instructions are written in a sub-cipher, a second layer within the plain German. The sub-cipher was not discovered until 2012. It uses the first letter of every 47th word. When extracted, those letters form a second text. That second text has not been fully translated, but the first 5 words have been decoded. They read, "The council holds the key." This is the second layer you need to hold in your mind. The manuscript does not contain the 3 words in any single location. It contains a labyrinth of coordinates. The words are assembled from fragments scattered across the 164 pages, encoded in the structure of the text itself, hidden in the spaces between the obvious words, buried in the margins, written in an ink that only appears when the vellum is exposed to a specific wavelength of ultraviolet light. The manuscript is not a book. It is a machine. It generates the 3 words only when all conditions are met. The conditions include time of day, ambient temperature, humidity level, and the presence of a specific individual whose biographical details are written nowhere in the manuscript except in the cipher. The manuscript is not a book. It is a machine, and you have just seen the schematic of its trigger mechanism. If you want to see what that machine ultimately produces, subscribe so you do not lose the thread when the conditions are finally revealed. In the comments, write what you believe the 3 words are for, because the cipher is pointing at something that involves you directly. Why the full translation was never published remains the subject of speculation. The Bavarian State Archives have denied all requests for access. Since 2004, the library catalog lists the manuscript as destroyed in the 1785 raid. The archival staff know the truth. Their silence was sworn at a ceremony that no one will discuss. The transcript of that ceremony is stored in a separate vault in Vienna, under the authority of an organization that does not appear in any public registry. You are beginning to see the shape of the machine. It operates through layers of denial, misdirection, and institutional silence. The manuscript is real. The protocol is real. The 3 words are real. They have been waiting for 240 years for a moment that has not yet arrived. The manuscript describes the moment as a convergence, a point in time when 7 specific conditions align. The first condition is the date. The manuscript says the date is not fixed. It is determined by astronomical events that occur only once every 13,000 years. The last occurrence was approximately 11,000 years before the manuscript was written. The next occurrence is described as imminent. The second condition is the individual. The person who is meant to speak the words is described not by name but by bloodline. The manuscript lists 37 generations. The 37th generation is the one that will produce the speaker. The manuscript was written in 1785. 37 generations from that point, counting a generation as 28 years, brings the date to approximately the year 2800. But the manuscript also says that generations can be compressed when necessary, that the bloodline can produce the speaker earlier if the convergence draws near. The date of the next convergence is not specified, only that it follows the last one by 13,000 years. The third condition is the location. The 3 words must be spoken in a chamber that was built before the manuscript was written. The chamber is described in detail, its dimensions, its orientation, the materials used in its construction. The description matches a room beneath the city of Vienna, built in 1709, sealed in 1848, allegedly destroyed by bombing in 1945. But the architectural blueprints from the Austrian Engineering Museum show a different story. The blueprints, dated 1873, show a chamber beneath the chamber, a lower level that was added during renovations. The lower level was not bombed. It is still there. Researchers who have cross-referenced the manuscript description with the blueprints have identified the room. It is located beneath the Albertina, the museum complex that houses one of the largest graphic art collections in the world. The room does not appear on any public map. It is accessed through a door that is concealed behind a panel in the museum's basement storage area. The door is not locked. It is sealed. The seal is not breakable. It is designed to be removed only by a specific process described in the manuscript. The process involves the 3 words. Now you need to understand the full weight of what you are reading. This is not theory. This is not legend. The lodge minutes from July of 1782 are still in the Bavarian State Archives. They can be requested. They have never been digitized. The inventory list from the Ingolstadt raid, the classified one that was never entered into the public catalog, was leaked to a researcher in 2003. It exists. It confirms the manuscript survived. The genealogical registers from the parish archives in Frankfurt list the same bloodlines mentioned in the manuscript, uninterrupted from 1785 through 1945. These are documents you can verify. Declassified MI5 files from 1946 confirm that post-war Masonic continuity programs were established across German-speaking Europe. The programs were designed to preserve the structure of lodges that had been dismantled by National Socialism. The names of the program directors match the names in the 1785 inventory, the same families, the same titles, the same specific locations. The architects who designed the continuity programs were aware of the manuscript. They referenced it in their internal correspondence. They called it the settlement plan. The settlement plan is the name of the protocol that the 3 words activate. It is described as a complete reorganization of human governance across the European continent, followed by an expansion into the Americas, followed by a consolidation that would take approximately 70 years. The manuscript says the plan was written in 1768 by a council of 47 individuals. The council was composed of representatives from 47 families, each of which held a seat on the council. The seats are hereditary. The council still exists. Its current location is unknown to researchers, but its decisions have been detected in the patterns of global finance, in the timing of major political events, in the synchronization of crises across multiple continents. If the document is accurate, the countdown has already started. The convergence is not in the distant future. The 37th generation is alive now. The bloodline has been compressed. The chamber beneath Vienna is intact. The manuscript is available to those who know how to request it. The three words have been assembled in fragments, but no single person has ever combined them in the correct order. The copper compound in the manuscript ink is the final safeguard. It was added to ensure that the words can only be read in a specific spectral range, under a specific light, at a specific time of day when the angle of the sun enters the room above the chamber. The codex names a specific date, a specific family, a specific vault. It also names a location that still exists, that still operates, that still selects. The vault is in Frankfurt. The family is the von Hessen bloodline. The date is written in cipher, but the surrounding plain text reveals that it falls in the same year that the manuscript was rediscovered in 2004. That year has already passed. The date was not reached. The manuscript says that the protocol can only be activated 3 times before it locks permanently. 2 activations have been attempted. 1 is left. The first attempt was in 1914. The words were spoken, but in the wrong order. The result was a catastrophe that lasted 4 years, killed millions, and redrew the map of Europe. The manuscript describes this as a failure of precision. The second attempt was in 1939. The words were spoken again by a different individual in a different location. The result was another catastrophe that lasted 6 years, killed tens of millions, and reshaped the entire global order. The manuscript describes this as a failure of timing. The third attempt, if it succeeds, will not produce war. It will produce the correction, the complete reset of the system that has been running since 1848. The same codex that names the von Hessen vault in Frankfurt also records those 2 attempts, 1914, 1939, and warns that only 1 activation remains. If you are following this investigation closely, you understand that we are tracing a timeline that has already moved past the date written in cipher, and the window is closing. Subscribe to stay with the uncovering of that third attempt, to watch us cross-reference the names and locations that the manuscript insists are still active. And in the comments, write the word that the codex uses for the years between corrections. Distraction, if you see the pattern connecting those 2 catastrophes to the mechanism still running today. That system is described in the decoded pages as the distraction mechanism. It is the apparatus of war, political division, economic manipulation, and cultural degradation. It was designed to keep humanity unaware of the real structure that controls planetary events. The manuscript states that the distraction mechanism will be dismantled when the protocol is activated. It states that the correction will not be violent, but it also states that it will not be gentle. It will be structural. It will be decisive. It will be invisible to most people because most people will not be looking for it. You are now looking at the third layer of the secret. The manuscript is not a historical document. It is a deed of transfer. It transfers authority from one council to another, from one generation to the next, from one bloodline to the designated speaker. The 3 words are the signature on that deed. They confirm that the transfer is authorized. They activate the new structure that replaces the old one. The old structure has been running for 240 years. It is tired. It is leaking. It has been compromised by forces that even the council cannot fully control. The manuscript says that the protocol must be activated before the old structure collapses on its own, because an uncontrolled collapse would be far worse than a guided correction. It says that the distraction mechanism has become so powerful, so entrenched, so independent of its original designers, that it now feeds on itself. The war apparatus no longer needs a council to direct it. It has learned to generate its own conflicts. The manuscript calls this condition the runaway state. It says that the protocol is the only way to stop the machine before it consumes everything. The final entry in the decoded pages is a single word: collapse. It appears at the bottom of page 164, after the last sentence, written in the same hand as the rest of the manuscript, but with slightly different ink. The ink has been analyzed separately. It contains no copper compound. It is standard iron gall ink from the 18th century. This means the word was added after the manuscript was completed, possibly years later, possibly by a different hand trying to disguise the original author's work. The word collapse is beneath a line that says, "The clock has been wound." The key is with the 47th. The line has no punctuation. It hangs in the manuscript like an open door. 47 pages later, in the cipher, the 3 words are encoded. They are assembled from fragments placed at strategic intervals across the text. They are the signature. They are the confirmation. They are the final instruction. What the next page says, the council redacted. The final entry is a single word. The codex does not say when. It says only that the collapse will be announced by the 3 words. It says that the speaker will know when to speak. It says that the chamber beneath Vienna will open when the words are spoken. It says that the manuscript will close itself, that the ink will fade, that the vellum will dissolve into dust within 4 hours of the words being spoken aloud. The manuscript is designed to destroy itself upon activation. It is a one-shot device. The only existing copy will cease to exist once the protocol is executed. This is the design of a system that has been refined for 240 years. It is precise. It is layered. It is invisible to those who do not know how to look. But you now know how to look. You have the coordinates. You know the bloodline. You know the chamber. You know the number 47. You know that the manuscript survived the last raid, that it is still in Frankfurt, that it can be requested. The question no one has answered is not whether the manuscript exists. It is whether the protocol will ever be activated. The manuscript says yes. The council says no. The vault is still sealed. The clock is still wound. The 3 words are still waiting. In the next chapter, we trace the bloodlines from Frankfurt to Vienna. We examine the names you will recognize from the genealogical registers. We locate the chamber beneath the Albertina and the door that cannot be broken. We look at the 1914 failure in detail and the 1939 failure in detail, and we ask what the third attempt will look like when the conditions finally align, because the convergence is approaching. The 37th generation is alive. The manuscript is real. The 3 words are real. And the question is not whether you believe. It is whether you are ready to see the shape of the machine that has been running in the dark while you were told to look the other way.